The following is a project of our nonprofit newsroom. Support Midcoast Morning and local community-centered journalism today by signing up to be a monthly sustaining donor at chuy.ca/donate. It doesn't take much money to support local news.
Hello and welcome to Midcoast Morning. I'm Joe Pugh. As the City of Nanaimo attempts to deal with unruly conduct during council meetings, a proposed ban on recording has some councillors raising concerns. Bylaw changes that include bans on photography and audio and video recordings of council meetings passed 3 readings at a February 24th meeting, with council voting 7-2 in favour of the changes. Under the rules, which still need to be adopted at a later date, photography and recording at a meeting could still be permitted if allowed by the meeting's chair. Councillors Hilary, Eastmure and Sheryl Armstrong voted against the changes, and both expressed concern about the ability of the bylaw to stand up to legal challenges. We'll hear from Eastmure later on in the program. At a meeting this past week, Councillor Paul Manly, who originally voted in favour of the changes, said he's not comfortable with the bylaw as it's worded and that he would be bringing forward a motion to revisit discussion on the issue at a later date. We'll also hear from Manly on today's show. But we begin with Nanaimo Mayor Leonard Krogh, who spoke with me about the issues that led council to consider the ban. What's the issue that's led to this ban on recording and photography at council meetings absent permission from the chair?
The issue is the behavior of some people who have chosen to come to council meetings, to wander around, taking video recordings, ad-libbing it, taking photographs, including of staff, putting them on social media, doctoring them, behaving in ways that are discourteous and frankly disruptive to council. I need to remind the public that we have a public code of conduct which didn't extend to council chambers, and the use of electronic devices to take photographs or record video is prohibited unless expressly authorized. And all the city is doing is enforcing the provisions of the Personal Information Protection Act, which we have incorporated in our public code of conduct. And we have now extended that to make it clear that it extends to council meetings as well.
Why wasn't an exemption included in the rules for media outlets?
An exemption wasn't included for the very basic reason that the chair, and I'm the chair, I'm entitled to give consent on behalf of council, etc., to recording and photographs if appropriate, or to people in general, because there are public occasions when members of the public will be presented with some kind of an award or something like that. The concept is not to disturb that kind of activity, but the staff have a legal right to privacy. Council's not really concerned about itself. We're used to a certain amount of abuse and criticism, but you don't have the right to take pictures of our staff or record our staff and broadcast that unless they expressly consent. And the same applies to individuals who are in public facilities, and that's why we have a bylaw in place. Keeping in mind, and everybody needs to be reminded of this, that bylaws are complaint-driven processes. We don't, as a city, send out our bylaw officers to look for you necessarily. If it's a parking violation, that's a different thing. But we're not going to come out and see if your fence is too high or too low or whatever, and a breach of a bylaw provision, unless there is a complaint made. And the same will and does apply here. Moreover, with respect to the media in general, the media is welcome, and by that I mean what I will call credible media, to ask permission to do it. And I will happily grant it. And if people think I'm being abusive and withholding the right of the media to report on council proceedings, then they can publish that and criticize me accordingly. The reality is that council meetings have been live streamed for years. They're reproduced on the city website. The media is always and has always attended where they thought it appropriate or were interested. So I see this as simply protecting our staff and protecting the rights to privacy that are enshrined in law in the province.
Now, you're the mayor and therefore the chair of these meetings right now. I'm going to read you a CBC headline from 2018 before your time in office. After years as BC's most dysfunctional city government, Nanaimo starts to turn the page. From the Times columnist, province won't intervene with dysfunctional Nanaimo Council. It's not just a hypothetical to suggest that the city could at some time have a government widely viewed as dysfunctional. It's something that's happened within living memory. In that context, having this ban on the books, ostensibly to deal with other issues, is that a good thing?
Look, I think it's a very good thing. I mean, the best time to establish law is when you're not facing a crisis. And the previous council and my predecessor, Bill McKay, for whom I have both affection, respect, and sympathy, I might add, and I've said that on many occasions, was stuck with the decisions imposed on him around the hiring of staff, was abused by a majority of his council, respectfully, I say to them. And Bill McKay, it would have been nice if he'd been in a position to enforce some of these things and make decisions. Now, if he was challenged by his council, he'd potentially be on the losing end again. But what this points out, and what I want to emphasize to the public, the ability and the right to vote is not something to be abused. It is not something to be taken lightly, and it is something where people who choose to vote, and I encourage everyone to vote, should do so wisely, investigate the candidates who are running, look at their background and their behaviors.
Last year, May 27th, at a council meeting, a man was arrested and escorted out. The city's online recording of the meeting cut out as it went to recess. If it weren't for people recording the incident on their electronic devices, which would now be banned, there would be no footage of that arrest. How can it be a good thing that people could face penalties for documenting any kind of unforeseen developments that happen in the council chambers, which could be viewed as a public place?
Okay, let's take a public situation. Say that it happened outside the council chamber. Do you think the police phone up and say, oh, we're about to arrest somebody for robbing the bank? Can we please get the media down here to record it? I don't see that as a major issue. The fact is it was reported afterwards. Whether or not it was actually videotaped is another question. And frankly, I don't know that Mr. Clark would have, the individual involved would have liked having his image played in the media in the circumstances. I don't think any issue that arose from it, I think, is outweighed by the rights of all of us to privacy. In addition, at that same time, a woman interfered with the police and, in my respectful opinion, interfered with that arrest and might well have been subject to a charge of assaulting a police officer. But the police chose not to pursue it any further. The individual involved came back to council on various occasions. And I have, frankly, exercised even my existing powers to get him to try and be quiet on occasion when he's gone off track and accused me of all sorts of things. Look, this is about maintaining decorum in the public forum, which is a council meeting, and it is a council meeting. It's not a town hall meeting. And protecting the privacy of staff and recognizing that the laws of British Columbia respecting that privacy are in force everywhere, and our bylaw supports that.
Already last summer, Nanaimo introduced a Respectful Spaces bylaw to give the city the ability to fine people who are causing some of the disruption you were talking about there. Why the need to take this extra step?
Simply because there are individuals who have chosen, for whatever reason, some of whom have expressed very clearly through signage and their comments publicly that they subscribe to conspiracy theories, which, frankly, are ludicrous, and choose to assert and believe that the city council is supporting pedophilia, that we belong to the World Economic Forum, that they have the right to interfere and yell at council members, take pictures of staff, etc. I mean, it is the behaviors of those people that has led to this. And, you know, I'm as troubled by it as anybody. I don't believe in over-regulation per se, but we all recognize that if we are to maintain that, which I'm very proud, which is the very nature of this country based on peace, order, and good government, then that has to have some meaning.
How is this ban going to be enforced?
I can exercise my powers to ask that they be removed, and if they refuse to be removed, for instance, in an extreme case, in addition to fines and things like that, I can ask the police to intervene. And I will happily do so if people are going to do this. I mean, I think the public and your listeners need to understand. We had an individual last night holding up prominently a sign, basically attacking, it's aimed at one of our staff, I won't say who, saying that SOGI, in this school district, SOGI plus eugenics equals, what was it? Yes, pedophilia, which was misspelled, I might add. Do you think, as an individual, as a journalist, as a reporter, that it's appropriate that people should be subjected to that in a public place? Do you think that we went easily as a city council down the path of securing a court order against one individual, which has been reported, who has chosen to make the most ludicrous, outrageous, insulting, and completely untrue comments about staff members? Has posted it on social media and has continued to do so, apparently. I mean, I'm sorry. The interaction between free speech and privacy, between order and disorder, is always a tough area. But this council is not going to stand idly by and allow people who have beliefs that, frankly, have no basis in fact, in my respectful opinion, but more importantly, wish to impose their beliefs on people in a public meeting, wish to invade the privacy and rights to privacy of our staff and other individuals, members of the public. We're not going to see our council meetings turned into public farces, which, of course, some individuals did last year as well, putting on a little play during a delegation, you might recall, dressing up as a king and a queen and mocking. I mean, frankly, it didn't advance their cause much, but it demonstrates the kind of silliness that a failure to respond to this kind of behavior will lead to. We're not going to waste council's time, staff time, and literally taxpayers' money and on lengthy council meetings to allow people to make jackasses of themselves.
On the debate on this particular change, Councillors Armstrong and Eastmure expressed reservations that this kind of thing could be open to a legal challenge on the grounds of the charter, given that council could be interpreted as a public space. Do you have any concerns that such a bylaw could open up Nanaimo to having to spend a lot of money on court challenges to deal with this?
Although not active now, I have been called to the bar for 45 years this July. Our code of conduct was developed with the assistance of the city solicitor. If I was asked to give a legal opinion, and I don't purport to be an expert, I think we're on very safe grounds. And indeed, if people wish to challenge, so be it. I am always happy, as a law-abiding Canadian, believing in peace, order, and good government, to receive the advice, direction, and interest of the courts of our country. That's how we determine what the law is and whether or not the law is fair, whether or not the law complies with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. But I'm satisfied that anyone who wishes to challenge this will fail.
Nanaimo Mayor Leonard Krogh.
Midcoast Morning is made possible by the Community Radio Fund of Canada and generous listeners like you. With your support, we can expand Midcoast Morning from 2 to 3 original programs per week to cover local news, current affairs, and arts and culture.
The City of Nanaimo is exploring a ban on recording and taking photographs at council meetings. A former journalist and current member of City Council has concerns about the proposal. I asked Councillor Hilary Eastmure to tell me about those concerns.
What Council has effectively passed 3 readings of is a ban that would make it so that you can't have electronic devices in the council chamber without permission from the chair. And that really concerns me, just certainly because of my journalism background, but also just as an involved member of the community. My understanding is that people have a charter protected right under Section 2B of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to photography and videography and recording sound in a public space. And we had a lawyer on Zoom at our meeting. And the first question I asked her was, is this a public space? And her answer was yes. And so I said, well, if this is considered a public space, I truly don't believe we have a legal standing to be able to prevent people from taking photos, videos, and recording sound in this public space. That's basically what it comes down to. And I think this is going to land us in court very quickly. And I would really like to avoid that. On top of that, the journalism aspect, like journalists have a right to do their job. It's called freedom of the press. And so if we don't even have something in that potential bylaw giving accredited journalists the ability to do their job without needing permission specifically from the chair every single meeting, that is a huge red flag to me.
What would you say to the suggestion that bylaws tend to be inherently complaint-based and therefore the media doesn't have a reason to worry that the chair isn't looking to punish them per se?
I think it's a nice idea. I think this is like policy creep that is sending us down the wrong path. It's not engendering trust. And I think that, one of my concerns really with journalism is we're already seeing the media industry being hollowed out. And we are losing major media outlets. We saw it in Nanaimo several years ago. We lost the Nanaimo Daily News. And so now we have working journalists who don't belong to major media organizations anymore, but they're independent freelancers, and perhaps they have their own Substack or a Patreon, and they have a different way of getting their message out. But they might not have traditional media accreditation. And my concern is that if we have a freelance journalist of that nature who might write something that the chair doesn't agree with, and the chair takes issue with that and doesn't give them permission to record in the council chamber, I think that's an infringement on their rights. And I'm not necessarily saying that our current chair would do that, but you don't know what kind of mayor you get in the future. And so I think that this creates a situation where the chair has a lot of unnecessary discretion over who is allowed to record in the council chamber. And, just because we don't have media coming to all of our meetings right now, we do sometimes have media in the audience and they're recording and taking photos. But of course, yes, we also have the live stream. But, when I watch clips from the live stream on the news, even when I'm speaking, I can barely hear myself. It's so echoey in that chamber. So I think, the quality of the recording that the city's putting out is also not necessarily great for journalism. And we need to be able to allow journalists to be able to do their jobs in the council chamber if they so choose.
How do you see it that the city should be trying to respond to the issue that this measure is ostensibly trying to address?
Yeah, so what we've had is a situation with a very small number of individuals who are using the electronic device to record, and underneath that, they're making defamatory, harassing comments and posting that online. And we've had to deal with that in a separate court case with one individual, because yes, I will stand up for your right to record and take video in the council chamber, but it's not okay to do that and harass staff or to defame people or to be libelous with it. Like that's, freedom of speech is one thing, but like bullying and harassment, and, the spreading of misinformation, and targeting individuals like that is not okay. And so what we need to be doing is addressing that behavior, but you don't do it with a blanket ban on electronic devices.
And I should say, for people listening, the prohibited use of an electronic device, as we're talking about in the bylaw, it's defined as use of an electronic device by a member of the public that interferes with the sound system or other technology, interferes with decorum or is inconsistent with orderly conduct of business, generates sound or requires speaking into the device, or, and this last part is what we've been highlighting, to take photographs or record video unless expressly authorized by the chair. So you still are allowed to have your phone at a council meeting unless you're using it to record, is what I would take away from the reading. That's not even clear to me because, I talked to staff about it and they said that basically electronic devices won't be allowed in the gallery because how do you know if someone is recording on a cell phone or taking video? Like you could be just quietly sitting in your seat pointing your phone towards council and recording, but there isn't necessarily a way to tell whether it's recording or not. And
we also have other kinds of technology that aren't just phones, like, Google Glasses or like spy pens. Like, there's lots of different ways to record. And like, how are we going to, like, how are you policing this? And so essentially their comment was like, well, people won't be allowed to have electronic devices, period, in the gallery. And I'm like, how do you enforce that? Like, do you have security at the door? Like, do you have metal detectors? Like, how is this going to go? Because like, personally, I'm not going to attend a council meeting where I'm not allowed to have my phone. Like, it's a ubiquitous tool that everyone carries with them now. So, yeah, I just don't think there will be a fair way to enforce this. And then it just comes back again to the behavior. It's really not the device. It's how you're using it. And it's very clear and easy to see which small number of individuals are misusing it. Because otherwise I'm like, okay, well, what's next? Like, someone is shouting in the gallery and making defamatory remarks. No more mouths in the council chamber. Like, that's not it. But that's the natural end of this, is that like no one's allowed in the gallery. And so I really don't think that is appropriate for a public space and for a place where we are trying to encourage civic engagement.
You expressed these concerns at the meeting on February 24th when this was discussed. Councillor Sheryl Armstrong also shared similar concerns, and the vote was 7-2. It was just you two. What kind of discussions have you had with other councillors about this? Why do you think there wasn't more debate on this?
I'm actually really surprised that there wasn't more debate about it, and I'm shocked that it got this far. And I kept it really simple with my remarks that night. I just said, under the charter, people have a right to this. They have a legal standing. I don't believe that we can actually do this. And Councillor Armstrong agreed. And there was a real lack of input from other people, and I just don't think we actually had enough discussion about like functionally how is this going to work. And to be honest, I've had pretty limited conversations with other councillors about it, because to me it seems really, really simple, and I just don't really understand where they're coming from on it. Someone suggested to me that Lanceville has a bylaw to this effect, and I checked today, and no, it doesn't. I think they tried and they had to walk it back because it's functionally not possible. So, I think unfortunately we had some, there was limited discussion in the public meeting, and I feel like the legal opinion that we got, a legal opinion is just that. It's an opinion. And I feel like we didn't really get enough information, and we didn't take the time to really grapple with this and understand like functionally what this would look like. And I think it's a step too far.
Is there anything else you think it's important to bring to the conversation on this issue right now?
I mean, I think this is happening because of the actions of a very small number of individuals who have been acting out, and they have been acting in a way that makes the council chamber feel unsafe. They've been targeting staff. They've been making defamatory remarks, and that is absolutely not okay. And I will stand up for staff safety and for a safe workplace all day long. But I will also stand up for charter protected rights, and the right, especially of journalists, to be able to do their job. And if you're coming to council and sitting in the gallery in a respectful manner, and you want to record videos and take pictures, not just of the happy moments when we give out plaques, but when we're having tough conversations, I absolutely have no problem with that, because it is a public job. Our staff are public servants, and I truly believe that this council does believe in transparency and open and accountable government. And I think that, if everyone takes the time to really look at this, we won't be passing fourth reading on this, because it's just not the right way.
Nanaimo City Councillor Hilary Eastmure speaking with me about her concerns around bylaw changes that would ban members of the public from recording city council meetings if they didn't have permission from the chair of those meetings. At a council meeting this past Monday, Councillor Paul Manly said he plans to bring forward a motion that would revisit debate on this issue. I spoke with him on Tuesday.
So initially when I saw this provision in the bylaw, I wasn't in favor of it. and I had concerns about it. And but I did hear a lot from staff, and we do have a duty of care to staff, and we are bound by WorkSafe legislation. And so what's been going on in council, there's a small group of people who are involved in harassing behavior, intimidating behavior. And we actually have a court decision, a judge's order against one of these individuals for zooming in on members of staff and then making defamatory comments about them. And this is reprehensible behavior. It's really repulsive, kind of disgusting amateur behavior, and some of the immature behavior, amateur and immature, and the behavior in chambers is immature as well. And it's just we've been putting up with it for quite a while, but then it started to get really ugly. And we do have a duty to protect staff, and it is a work environment, and we do require staff to be at council meetings as part of their job. So under WorkSafe legislation, we are bound by that legislation to ensure that they aren't harassed on the job. So that's why I sort of switched up and ended up voting for it. And we do have an option to reconsider our vote. But what I wanted to do, and I was trying a few different options for different motions that would be acceptable to other council members, because there's no point in cracking open a debate and having another vote if you're not going to win that vote. It just doesn't make sense. And so what I wanted to do was try to find another avenue to deal with this that is not such a blunt tool, because just having a ban is a blunt tool. It would be difficult to enforce. We could allow, there is a provision in there that allows the chair to allow media to record electronically. But then there's, the whole question of the shift in media. And I'm an independent journalist myself. I worked as an independent filmmaker for 3 decades. And I've been accredited to go to places like the G20 and the G7 by CHLY. So I got a badge that allowed me to get into the meetings at the G20, into the conference center behind the barricades, and go and speak to people, government officials and corporations, corporate heads, CEOs, that kind of thing. But the media landscape is shifting, and so people are losing their jobs, and then they're independent and they're doing stuff on Substack. And so then the question is, okay, what is accreditation now? Like, who's providing that accreditation? And how do you determine these things? And if you leave it in the hands of a chair and somebody's written an article that the chair doesn't like, could they pull a Donald Trump and say, well, you didn't put Gulf of America in your news story, and so you can't come to my briefings anymore. You can't be in the White House press room. And so that becomes arbitrary power. And so I'm a big believer in freedom of the press and freedom of expression. But I'm also a big believer in protecting staff. So I'm trying to figure out what the balance is here. I don't have the answer quite yet. So I'm doing a little more research, talking to people, and trying to bring something that's going to satisfy the needs of both staff and council to address this challenge that we're facing.
Do you have a sense of when you might bring back an option to maybe reopen the debate on this before it goes to a fourth reading?
Well, I'm hoping to get something pulled together soon. Yeah. But I do want to, I want to talk to a few different people who have some expertise in this, and then just make sure that my fellow council members and the mayor are on board, really. I think with a solution. I may not get everybody on board, but yeah, I'm just looking for a better option. And almost immediately regretted voting for this section. I definitely did the next day, just because, thinking it through, I'm just like, if I wanted to bring my camera in and videotape, do I want to have to ask permission from the chair? Or do I have to go get accreditation from CHLY while I'm making an independent film? That's what I did with the G20. I mean, I ended up just adding that on to what I was doing, because I was doing other work there, and I got accreditation with CHLY on the condition that I phoned in from the G20 and the G7 and reported. So,
Nanaimo City Councillor Paul Manly. That's our show for the day. Thank you for joining me. I'm Joe Pugh, host and producer of Midcoast Morning. Jesse Woodward is our executive producer, and RB Frew is our technical advisor. You can sign up for CHLY's newsletter at chly.ca/subscribe for updates from our nonprofit newsroom and more. Our theme song is First One by local Nanaimo band Waste Management. If you have a story you'd like us to cover, email us at news@chly.ca. That's all for now. I'll talk to you on another Midcoast Morning.
Midcoast Morning would not be possible without the funding of the Community Radio Fund of Canada's Radio Meters program and listeners like you. Midcoast Morning is a project of CHLY's nonprofit newsroom. Support nonprofit journalism in Nanaimo and on the Salish Sea today by becoming a monthly sustaining donor at $5 or more per month. Support the program at chly.ca/donate. If you're already a supporter, record a voice memo telling others where you're listening from and why they too should support our work. After you're done, you can email it to us. Also, share the podcast with your friends. While Meta is blocking Canadian users from sharing news content on their Facebook feeds, you can still share our podcast directly with your friends via Facebook or Instagram Messenger. Finally, this program acknowledges and gives thanks to the Snuneymuxw First Nation as we broadcast and podcast from their traditional territory. Thanks for listening.